Instructional time-lapse videos are extremely powerful at showing long processes in a condensed period of time. Many digital cameras, smartphones, and action cameras have a built-in intervalometer or a time-lapse mode, where the camera will take a series of pictures after waiting a certain period of time between each shot. You can then import that series of images into Photoshop and turn them into a video. Let's start by going up to the File menu and selecting Open. Then navigate on your hard drive to the folder that contains your series of images. Now, here's a series of images that I captured with my GoPro camera set in time-lapse mode. Now, to bring all of these images into Photoshop, select the first image and notice that all of these images are all named and numbered sequentially. And they do not need to start at any particular number, but they do need to be numbered sequentially. Then click the Options button and check the box for Image Sequence, and then click Open. Photoshop will then automatically import all of the rest of the images it finds that follows the same sequence of numbers. Next, Photoshop asks you what frame rate you would like to use for this footage. Now, if you're planning to use this time-lapse with any other footage, then select the frame rate that's going to match all of the other footage that you're using. Now, don't worry, you can change this later, so for now, I'm going to leave mine set to 24 frames per second and then click OK. Your image sequence now comes in as a single video clip and it appears in your timeline panel. You can press the spacebar on your keyboard to preview your time-lapse. Now, if you'd like to change the speed of your time-lapse, then you can click the small arrow icon that's here in the upper right corner of the end of your clip. Now, to speed your clip up, enter a larger value in the speed field. I'll enter 400. And notice that your clip gets significantly smaller. Let's preview this by clicking outside of that window and then press the spacebar to preview your clip. Now that's going significantly faster. Now, to slow the clip down, go back into your duration window and enter a smaller value for the speed, such as 50%. Notice this time, though, that our clip's length didn't change. That's because when we sped up the clip, the duration for that clip got shortened. To stretch the clip back out, click the drop-down menu here and drag the duration slider all the way to the right. Now your clip spreads back out. We can click out of that window and again preview by pressing the spacebar. Now that's looking much better. If you'd like to change the frame rate, then click the hamburger menu on the right-hand side of your timeline panel and choose Set Timeline Frame Rate. Here's that same frame rate window that we saw initially when we brought in our footage. Now let's change this footage to, say, 30 frames per second, and then click OK. Your timeline will automatically adjust to that new rate. Now, the GoPro camera captured this square-shaped footage. Let's crop that down to a more standard 16:9 by grabbing our crop tool, changing the aspect ratio down to 16:9, and then finding a pleasing crop, and hitting Enter or Return to lock it in. Then it's a good idea to save your project. Go up to your File menu and choose Save. You'll need to give this a name. I'll call this Boat Work, and save it to my desktop for now. Then to export your video, you'll need to render it by going back down to the hamburger menu for your timeline and selecting Render Video. Then you'll need to make sure that you have an appropriate name for your video. I'll leave mine set to Boat Work, and select the destination folder. Mine's going to go directly to my desktop. Then to export video, make sure that the Adobe Media Encoder option is selected. And if you're sending this out to the web, you'll want to make sure that format is set to H.264. Now check the preset menu to see if there is something in here that makes sense for your specific content, such as down near the bottom, there are the settings for Vimeo and for YouTube that you may need. Now the rest of these settings all look pretty good for now, so I'll click the Render button. It may take a few minutes for Photoshop to fully render and export your video out. When it's finished, minimize Photoshop, and here's our finished video file on our desktop, ready to be included in your teaching and learning assets.